Lesson 4.6, Plan Drawings. In this lesson you will learn how to create a foundation plan, learn to create an existing plan, learn how to create a demolition drawing, and learn how to create a roof plan. Back to Vectorworks. We're going to start by creating our foundation plan. So you might remember that we actually created some walls for our foundations and that we put them on a class called Wall Foundation. So in this case we would probably want to turn off our demolition walls, turn off our existing walls, and you can see just down here I'm using my classes, because we want to turn on our foundation walls. So there are the walls for my foundation. They are set up to have a class, so I can change the graphic style of that. You'll also notice I've got my room labels, and my room labels are actually on a specific class called Notes General. Now I've gone back to using my workspace, which is the Architect workspace. The landmark will be fine, the spotlight will be fine for this as well. And the reason I've gone back to using those is because of this tool here, the visibility tool. Now the way that I set this tool up, if we just click on this preference button here, I usually set this up so that double clicking on the tool icon makes all classes visible. So this is a great way, or a really quick way. Double click turns every class on. One of the easy ways to set up your drawing ready to create your viewport is to go through with the visibility tool and hide the things that you don't want to show. So for example, we're creating a foundation plan, so we might want to see that slab, so let's leave that on. We don't want to see those notes there, we don't want to see those, we don't want to see those dimensions, we might want to see the slab, but we don't want to see our existing walls, so we'll turn those off as well. We don't want to see our proposed walls, and we don't want to see our demolished walls. So that's a really quick way of creating those things. Then start your dimensioning. Use your dimension tool under Dims and Notes, where it is there, using our dimension tool, so I'm going to create a dimension from there, using just my single dimension at the moment, from there to there. So there's my foundation. There's my foundation outline. Here I've got a foundation standing out here as well, and this one. So I need those dimensions. I need to assign these dimensions to the correct class. I don't want to see them all the time. At the moment they're always created on the class called Dimension. This is a Vectorworks preference. I'm going to delete those. Click on this button here and we'll have a look and find our document preferences. So this is a document preference for dimensions, and it's the dimension preference which says create dimensions in the dimension class. When you turn that off, you can create your dimensions in the required class. So let's go back up to here. I've got some classes already created. I've actually got one called Foundation Dimensions, and when I turn it on, you'll notice that a lot of my dimensions are already there. This one here just needs to be moved out, and you might remember we can drag that out and we can delete it if it's no longer required. So that's on my dimensions. So I do need to create some more dimensions down here. So I'm going to go back to my dimension tool, and if I make this the active class, my Notes Foundation, when I create my dimensions, they should automatically be assigned to the correct class. And here they are here. This saves you a lot of time and aggravation with mucking around with your classes and what you've created, the dimensions aren't where they expected to be, and so on. Now what would be quite handy is a legend. Legend spelling out what is slab and what is other parts. So let's just go over here. I'm going to create a legend. This again is on the Notes Foundation class. So this is my legend. And we're going to enter for that. And we want that to be quite large. So let's make 18 point for my legend. And we'll move that over here. So what we need to have is we need to have something that helps people to understand that this is a slab and these are foundation walls. An easy way to do that is to right click on one of these objects and use the option Create Similar Object. Now you can also use this if you're on a Macintosh. It's the Option plus Command key. On a Windows machine it's Control plus Alt. So if I hold those two keys down, you'll see that I get a new cursor. So let's click on that object there. That's my slab object, and now I can create a new slab. So I can now create a slab, and that's my slab object. And it's on the right class. Notice it's automatically put on the right class. Let's do that again for the wall, and that should have picked up my wall tool, and now I can draw a wall, double click, and now I can write the notes that I need. So the notes here that this is a 4-inch thick slab, and I'm just going to pause the movie while I write those things. So I'm going to write the 4-inch slab here and the type of wall that I've got. Now I've created my legend. I might need more information, but that will do for now. And you'll notice that I've put my legend off to the side here, out of the way. I need to create a viewport to create my foundation plan. View on the menu bar, and I could create the viewport there. But don't forget, we can also predefine the crop area. So I'm going to create my crop object, up to View on the menu bar, and create viewport. So this will be my foundation plan. Viewport. It's going on a new sheet layer. I'll need a sheet layer for the front. I'll need a site plan. So this will be sheet number 3. Foundation plan. Okay. And what layers do we want to see? Not the roof, just the walls. What classes do we want to see? Well, we want to see nearly everything. But we don't want to see our notes framing, we don't want to see our notes general. This will be in my room names, for example. We don't want to see demolition walls or existing walls or new walls. Now, if I had plumbing and drainage, I should really be showing that, but I haven't got that at the moment. I'm not going to worry about drawing it. That would be the architect course if you wanted to get into that. So let's go OK on that. There's my scale, 1 to 50, 1/4 inch, depending on whether you're metric or imperial. And it's wireframe 2D because it's top plan view, and OK. And there it is on my piece of paper. So let's see if we can't make this the correct page size, the page setup, and printer setup. I should have set this up for the other page already. Here it is, so A4, this wants to be A3, landscape, and OK, and OK. And there's my foundation plan. And if I just move that out of the way, so back to my selection tool, so let's just move that up there, and there's my foundation plan. Now I forgot to put this information in here, so foundation plan, I need to spell it correctly. Foundation plan, there it is, and you'll notice I put a capital in there, better fix that. So there's my foundation plan. Now I need a title block as well, so let's get our title block border tool, and we will find a style for this. So we'll find a style that we think might suit us, and I'm going to use my standard one. Custom, I think, is one I've used. Well, there's a custom one there. Have a look inside your current file. If there's not one there, then start to think about using one of your custom ones. So let's select that, and we'll double click to place it. Now this is set up as a style, so what we need to do is to edit that style. When we go to edit that style, it should bring up a new dialog box. So the changes I make here will affect all of my title blocks in this project from now on. So my border wants to be 1 millimeter. I'm not sure what that is in imperial, but it's very small. I just want a very small amount. I want to hide the border. I also want to turn off my zones, so no zones there. Leaves me just with that title block. I can also scale this. There's an opportunity to scale it. If we come down and have a look here, the scale factor, let's make it 0.7. That might fit on my page. We'll just check that. So it's very close. We'll just edit that once again. And my scale, 0.65, that might do. So there it is, it fits on my page. And those settings that I've just gone through will affect every title block from now on. So that's my first plan, my foundation plan, and I can just nudge that across if I like. I can use my arrow keys. With the shift key down, I can nudge that across until I get it just where I need it. Now I haven't got the legend, I need to make room for the legend. So let's have a look at making a legend. So I'm just going to make a copy of this, right click on it, and I'm going to edit my crop, because what we want to have is our legend. So I'm just going to move the crop so it just shows the legend. Let's exit my viewport crop. Right click on here and edit my annotations. So I don't need the annotations because they're already there as part of my legend. And we can see there that my legend is just a little bit too big. So I can change this, and I could make this a custom scale and make it maybe 1:65, making it just a little bit smaller. It doesn't have to be to scale because it's just not the need for it. You might notice that it's difficult now to see the difference between my foundation walls. Well, you might remember we had this opportunity to use class overrides. So let's go to this viewport here, clicked on the classes button, and let's edit that class, and we'll change that to have a heavy line. Make it heavy enough so you can see it, and I'll make it dashed, line type, short dashed. Select and OK. Now when I preview that, that appears that way, but it doesn't affect this viewport. Remember, they're independent. Had I made this change before I copied it, it would already be there. So let's go back to classes, wall foundation, let's edit that, and we chose line type short dashed, and we chose a line weight 0.5. And there we are. We've now got our foundation plan. Of course, we're missing some details. So what if I went back to my design layer and we change our legend, because it's actually a bit big, we don't need it quite that size. Let's make it there, and I'm also going to offset that just by a very small amount. So just offset it by 1 inch or 2 using this mode here, the offset original. When I inset that, what we should find is that when we go back to our foundation plan, you can see all the lines that go around my legend because my crop is just off to the side of those. If we have a look carefully, this foundation note here, let's edit our annotations. This is on the class called wall foundation because that was our active class. Let's put that back on the class called none. And there it is. So that's my first plan. Now the next plan I want to make is an existing plan and a demolished plan. So let's go back to our sheet layer here. Now we've got a layer which is pretty well working. This is, you've got to admit, this is working fairly well for us. Could I just copy that? I could just duplicate that whole thing. I've now got a brand new drawing. This wants to be a scale of maybe 1:100 because it's an existing plan. And then I can turn off the classes that I don't want to see. So I can turn off my foundation. I can turn off my existing and my demo. Let's preview that. We need to turn off our notes for our foundation. Let's turn those off and preview it again. And we'll turn off our slab and preview that. So I'm left with one dimension, you'll notice, that is still turned on. That's on the wrong class, and I need to fix that. We've got our demolition, got our door and window numbers. Now we have our door and window numbers. You might remember I actually created a class for that, called it spec, so I can turn those numbers off if they are not required. Okay, so that's my, it says foundation plan, but that's going to be, I'm going to double click there and call that existing. Existing plan. There we are, so that's over there. I can change the crop area. I can edit my crop. So right click, edit crop. Let's just pull that back in there. And that's not a bad plan. And I'm just going to drag a copy of that across. And this is going to be my demolition plan. Demolition plan. Now the demolition plan wants to show the demolished walls quite strongly, whereas the existing plan wants to show the demolished walls as being solid. So let's go to our classes here, wall demo, let's edit that, and we'll change that solid, it's a black line, solid line, and OK. Just make sure you got the right line weight to match the other ones. An easy way to do that is to select both of those and edit them together, so that we then say, right, they're all going to be that, they're going to be solid, they're going to be a black line, and they're all going to be 0.18, and that wants to be a solid white fill. And OK. Let's preview that, and so they should be identical. Now, if there's a problem with those, there's maybe I've forgotten to tell the class to control those. We'll see what happens. So there we are. They've updated. They look perfect. And on this particular one here, we want to change this so that my demolition walls appear more strongly. So here I'm going to double click. This wants to be a pattern. This wants to be a black line. This wants to be quite fat, so it's easy to see them. OK and OK. So it's much easier to see my demolished walls. Existing plan, demolition plan. We have a legend. We may need to change this legend. Remember, I created a legend on another drawing here on my walls. So that's my legend. I'm going to create another rectangle. Now, why don't we just change this, or I can just drag a copy of this legend across here. So hold down the Option key on a Macintosh or the Control key on a Windows machine, and this is my demolition. Demolition key. And here I could start to write demolition notes. So I'm going to get rid of that and get rid of that. I'm just going to lift these two up and change those so that they're on the class that I want, which is probably wall demo. I want them on the demolition wall because I think it would be quite handy to have them on the demolished wall. That's on the wall demo. This I'm going to change and shown thus. Okay, so remove all the walls shown thus. It could be a more descriptive thing. I'm going to change that, make it solid, and let's go back to our drawing. So back to our drawing. This is my legend. I want to edit the crop, so right click, edit the crop. There's my demolition plan over here, and I want to hide that one, show this one over here. And you'll notice that there's a lot of information missing because it was on specific classes. So there's my demolition key. We'd really like to have identical settings between this particular viewport and this one. We have an eyedropper tool, and the eyedropper tool has settings. And we haven't looked too much at the settings. This was covered in Chapter 3, Tools and Commands in Detail. What I'd like to do is I'd like to pick up all of my viewport attributes. I don't need to have the render or the data visualization, but my class overrides, my viewport overrides. So I can copy that one, put my finger on the Control key, and click there, and there's my class overrides. Now you will notice that it did include this particular bit of text, and it also included the lines that went around it. So I should really have noticed that before I did it. And let's go to here. So this and that one, they should be on the class none. This should be on the class none as well, not walls demo, because every time I assign things to those classes, I end up making them change their graphic style. Right click, let's edit this because it says foundation plan, and this should be existing. And demo plans. So I've now got that plan. The last one I'm going to create is the roof plan. And remember, I can just copy this again and duplicate it. Let's go back to our design and I will do it the other way. So we look at our walls. Do we want to see our walls, or do we want to just see our roof plan? So it's up to you to choose what you want to see. Remember that we can control a lot of this after we've created it. So we should really be showing our flashings, we should be showing our roof slopes. I'm just going to create my roof plan, rectangle to start with, view in the menu bar, and create a viewport. So this is my roof plan. New sheet layer. Roof plan. Okay. And what layers do we want to see? Well, actually we don't want to see walls, so we can just turn that off. And what class do we want to see? We might have a whole lot of classes that we need to show. We can turn those on or off. And this is my Okay, this is my roof plan. So roof plan there. And okay, and there's my roof plan. Now you notice because I didn't copy the existing plan, I now need to go and do my page setup. Page setup. If I went back to my design layer and I changed my page setup there, I wouldn't have to go back and do this every time I create a sheet layer. So there it is there. I need to place a title block, so I grab my title block, double click to place that, and I just need to check what I've created for this. Let me go back to that because that title block just doesn't look right. So let's go back to my page setup, printer setup, and say 3, that's correct. Okay, okay. Let's have a look at this other drawing here. So that has a specific size. Let's copy that. And we'll go to our drawing here. We'll delete that one and we'll just go paste. Right click, paste. That looks better. It looks like it's the right size. So that's my roof plan, and that's at 1 to 50 or 1/4 inch, and that might be better at 1 to 100 or 1/8 inch or 3/16. So it fits on the page and I've got room for notes and things like that. So that's the basic strategy for creating all of your plans. Create the information you need, check to make sure that things are turning on and off when you want. If you have information that turns up when it shouldn't do, for example, there's a dimension here turning up, right click on the object. So where there's a dimension there, right click, edit the design layer. That'll take you back to this design layer where you can choose where that dimension should be. For example, that should be on the notes foundation class. When we do that, it fixes that particular drawing. You'll also notice that naming the sheet layers accurately automatically fills in my title block. This is the end of lesson 4.6. In this lesson you learned to create a foundation plan, you learned how to create an existing plan, you learned how to create a demolition drawing, and you learned how to create a roof plan.